Hi everyone, Sarah Lindsay Fieldjoy UC here. I thought we'd just do something a little bit different for our next live Collaborate sessions and run what we call a flipped Collaborate beforehand. So here's a quick 15-minute video for you to review before you have the session with your ELA in week 8. We thought what we'd do is sort of try this different approach to help prepare you a bit more, so we can maybe even have a little bit more interaction at the sessions, but more than anything that you have had a chance to review the assessment guidelines in conjunction with this video, so that you can come to the session prepared with some questions too that you'll find really helpful. I suppose the benefit of this one too is this is essentially an after action review that you'll be conducting as part which asks you to reflect on your assessment to the team proposal and how you actually worked as a team and how you worked as an individual within that team as well too. So what will this video cover? So we'll work through the assessment guidelines together here. I'll then discuss the assessment criteria in a bit more detail and give you an indication as to what your ELA is going to be looking for. I'll discuss some handy resources with you, and I'll share the links with you as well in this little slide pack. Just has 3 slides to help you out. And we'll talk about some reflective writing and look at some effective paragraphing, and then this essentially will prepare you for your live Collaborate session in week 8 with your ELA as well too. So the details of that, the exact date and time, will be in your discussion boards as well. So I'll just jump into the assessment 3 forum here. So this is from your assessments menu, after action review, clicking on that link as well. So it's 1,500 words, worth 30% and due in week 11. Don't forget you can also print this out as well too. So in week 1, you may remember here in week 1, we actually touched on the first idea of after action reviews as part of a form of feedback control. So this is probably not unfamiliar to you. So by all means, you can jump back into the week 1 materials, which I've jumped into here for you. And as you scroll down into the controlling section here, it works through an example of an after action review. I always get the order of them muddled. And it steps you through addressing each of those questions as well, which gives you a bit of help and a bit of guidance there too. So ducking back to the assessment as well. So what we're going to be doing is reflecting on individual and team performance, which is a really important part of continuous improvement as you progress in the management world specifically. So what we're looking at here is learning from past mistakes. So looking at what worked well, what didn't work well, and what you do differently next time. And that is what we're looking for specifically within the assessment criteria too, which we'll go through more specifically. So you've submitted your second assessment, the team proposal, and then you'll start working on this. In actual fact, what you might like to do, and a few of us have spoken about this in the team coaching sessions, is to take notes as you're continuing to work on your team proposal, which will help you populate your response here as well. So these tables here you'll see are provided. So we've got a table here that you need to include in your final submission. There's one on a self-assessment here and then a team assessment here. So if you scroll down here, the actual template for these are embedded in the actual document here as well. So if we open that up, it's a little bit like the assessment 1 where we provided you with a Word template and you go into it and you may as well work with this. You don't have to, but here are the templates. So if you decide to work with something else, copy these templates of the tables. So work through each one, filling it all in. And these questions here will help populate what we need in the body of your work. So the team assessment 1, once again, by actually working through these and rating yourself and your team and coming up with a total score will help you pull your response together and work through each of those questions. And then this is taken from the assessment guidelines as well. And we'll touch more specifically on drawing the theories of Polk. And then you'll pad out this area. So you'll start with, you can use this structure, have introduction, teamwork, keep the headings, but take out the word counts. They're just suggested, so it's up to you. References and any appendix, which would be the tables, are not included in your word counts specifically. So going back to the assessment guidelines here too. So what you'll need to do is work through each section in particular. So just going up here, you'll use the tables and scores as a guide to populate the introduction, the section on teamwork, communication, and so forth, by drawing on your theory of Polk to outline the strengths and weaknesses. So we're going to want to hear you talking about theories and concepts relating to planning, organising, leading, and controlling in relation to your teamwork. What worked well from a leadership point of view, what didn't work well, and then what you'd also do differently, what controls you might put in place next time, how you might organise it a little bit better, organise your resources, your skills, talk about your SWOTs, things like that, working with the team charter, linking those ideas back and working with in-text citations to help you out there. So when you look at all these headings, so for example, quality management, that pops up here. So our team expected quality. So what your expectations were that you'd set as well. So moving down a little bit into the body, let's look specifically at the assessment criteria. So when we're looking at the content of reflection, what we're wanting here over in this section, if we just look at the HD area, I break that down to three sort of areas. And last time we ran this assessment, there's a couple of key things that really popped out for me. What we really want is an honest and insightful reflection on your team and yourself, and using the data from the tables, but being honest about what worked well, what didn't. It's obviously not going to be a slagging session of your teammates, sledging session, sorry, but more so an honest and well-supported reflection on what has happened. And then in particular, an area that quite a few students fell over with was the need to make connections to Polk. So as I mentioned earlier, talk about the strengths that you applied for planning, or the weaknesses that were there in the planning concept, or from an organising where you lacked. You can talk about Belbin's team roles, you could talk about Tuckman's stages, look at Pentland, that 2012 article that was in week 2, the new science of building great teams. So, there's some good things there to help you. So the people that didn't actually, provide links to Polk, you'll want an in-text citation for each of your Polk concepts. You'll want to research some of those theories. You may have used some of those as well in your Team 2 assessment, by all means. But make sure you actually link it back. And because a reflection can be descriptive. So if we have a quick look here, this is from your student portal. So looking at how to write reflectively, this is a really good resource. You'll find this in study resources. I've shared the link as well. But if we go further down, it's your ability to look at an event, examine it, and make connections, and then learn from it. So they're those components that we're looking at. So a reflective thinking model will enable you to go beyond purely a descriptive personal account to provide an analytical and productive piece. So when I talk about descriptive, what happens is a lot of people stop at this point. They tell us what happened, but then they don't link it back to the theory and the Polk concepts, and then they forget that third. If we have a look back here, see this third component about thoughtful solutions for future improvement? If we go back to this groovy resource, this action level, orientated level of reflection, what will you do now? So that's the what next part. Some of you have done learning and communicating, might be familiar with this what next concept too. So we'd like to see you flesh that out. There's another great resource on reflective writing I found here, Southern Cross University. I've shared that link, and if we jump in here, it provides you with some really good ideas about what is reflective writing. So you'll say you'll use feelings, you'll use verbs. Here we go, actions and verbs. There's a couple of examples here. Example 1 and 2 look really good. And if you look at example 3, it's one that lacks credibility because you don't use a source or you don't link it back to your theory. So if we duck back here to assessment 3, criteria 2, use of literature. What we're wanting you to do here is use in-text citations throughout and extend your research outside the learning materials to come up in particular with some of those sources around Polk. And the idea with that, if we duck back into this, this is the Southern Cross University resource here, what that does specifically, if you don't link your opinion to the theory, then your opinion lacks credibility. So that's why we say we want to use a source. So if you go down here, there's some great examples. Have a look in your own time, example 1, example 2, and see how they're both using sources here. As Egan, 1977, explains, And see the language. On contemplation, I realised. Self-disclosure is an important component, and then according to Johnson, so we've got some good ideas here. I remember feeling after this, so this is the conclusion as well, and some little helpers and prompters here for you too. And this one is the one that we want to avoid, where a few people students fell over last time, is it's not credible because you don't link it back to theory, you don't talk about any of those pulp concepts, for example, or use a source specifically. So spend a bit more time having a look at that when you get a chance as well. I've given you the links for those there specifically. And as I said, extend it beyond the readings as well too. Structure, so here we're looking for attention to detail, good spelling, good grammar, and sort of well set out paragraphs. So there's another great resource here in your student portal. It's called the Essay Planning Structure Guide. So study resources, academic writing. And if we open up this cool looking little hamburger, essay planning, it's a little PDF. This is what I talk about with having a topic sentence and having linking sentences. So work through all of this. What you'll have in each of your paragraphs, so when you go back, so when we talk about paragraphs, if you go back to the structure of your assessment, here, this structure. So in each of these ones, teamwork, communication, quality management, we go back to our little hamburger. So that will be one paragraph. Quality management will be another. So within each of those paragraphs, you want to have a topic sentence. You then link it to your source, your evidence, explain how it's relevant for you, and then sum it up. And that's where you'd look at things like how to improve in the future. So spend some time having a look at this. And this is a really good way to help you structure your essays, be they reflective or not. It's just a really great tool to get your head around and to be something to be aware of moving forward. And it will definitely help you out with this structure area, that it's highly cohesive, there's sequencing and so forth. And then referencing. So we're going to want to see you working within text citations throughout, and a reference list at the end on its own page in alphabetical order, working to the Harvard style as well. So if we now go back to my initial slides, what I've got here for you is a, page up, whoops. Where are we? Some really good links to those resources. So the student portal, there are those two resources I just shared with you, and another really good reflective writing one. So as you're finishing your team proposal, make sure you can start to make notes and start to fill in those tables as well. So now you think, well, what happens when we have our live collaborate sessions? So in week 8, make sure, this is what our agenda will look like in week 8. Check your DBs for the time and date. Make sure you've watched this video. Come prepared with questions. Join in as we work through some examples of reflective writing. So I will share some examples of the last teaching period of some good and some poor examples of reflective writing, and I'd like to discuss them. Share ideas about how you might apply the teamwork theory and the POLC theory and concepts to your reflection, and how you might weave those into your writing through the use of in-text citations. And then we'll look at some good examples of paraphrasing as well too. So, this will all give you some good ideas as to how to come prepared for the week 8 session as well specifically. So I hope you find that helpful. I hope this sort of different approach up front will really help you out. Be prepared for the session. And make sure you have a look at this in some great detail. Download the actual Word document, and then you can start padding this out. This is really just a suggested structure, and you can break down, into the word count that works for you. You don't have to stick to that. By all means, use headings, and then make sure you're effectively linking it back, in particular to the theories of POLC, talking about your strengths and weaknesses of yourself and your team. And don't forget to provide solutions for the future as to what you'd really do differently. And here are some good questions to prompt you. So I think it's a good idea to now start working through this and make some notes as you're going with your team assessment to help you out. But overall, I look forward to seeing you in week 8, and I hope you found this way of setting you up for the Collaborate session really helpful. And by all means, have a look at all those links I've shared as well too. Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye.